Yes, well, hello everybody. Today is the 12th of March 2018. I'm going to make a video about the Van Rhyn family history in Holland, and I thought I would share this with you. I'll try and do it in Afrikaans another time, but I've been in Australia since 1983, so my English is probably better. I'm going to play a bit of Elvis gospel in the background just to make it a bit more interesting, and I hope you enjoy my video, and hopefully it can help you learn about our past. And so the first picture is the Van Rhyn emblem, or in Afrikaans you'd say the familiewapen. Now there's been many people telling me which one is the real one. I'm not really sure. This is the one that they have in Holland, and obviously in Holland the IJ can also be spelled as a Y, so that's how we spell our surname, RHYN. So this is supposedly the family emblem. Then there's another one that I've been given that looks like this, and I'm told that this is the one for the South African branch of the family. And this is the one, the next one is the one that I grew up with in my household. It's got 3 artworks. I like it because it has an African influence, or South African influence. And if you look on the internet, there is also these ones. So who can really know which is the correct one? I for certain am confused. The next picture basically shows a summary of what I believe are the forefathers in Holland, and I'll spend a bit of time talking about how I got this information and why I believe it to be correct. In the Dutch way of doing things, as you probably would know, the son is named after the father. In more recent times, sometimes we would name the son after the grandfather, but Essed means basically son of. So as you can see, Willem has a son and his middle name is Willems because he belongs to Willem. Daniel has a son and he names him Loris Daniels. And so you can sort of predict who the father is, but anyway, I didn't need to predict. I'm just saying that the pattern follows. I'll explain through the video why I believe this to be the correct family lineage, and also some of the other branches that I visited on my research. I got this information over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's taken me quite a while, but I hope you enjoy it. So let's go to the next picture, which is a picture from my autobiography that I wrote, and that says lots of things, but this is where I was talking about the family history. Other people, and the website is there, say that Arend Mikkels was the first Van Rhyn, or in Australia we say Van Rhyn, which is a bit annoying, but that's how they pronounce it. As you can see from my previous picture, I could go a bit further back than this guy. Anyway, he was one of the first Van Rhyns. I also spent a bit of time trying to work out how we are connected to Rembrandt, because most Van Rhyns want to know how we're connected to Rembrandt. I do believe we're connected, but I don't think it's quite as direct as we would like. I don't think the South African Van Rhyns are directly related, but I will show how close I think we are. The next picture gives information about Daniel van Rhyn, and as you can see, his father would be called Jan. So it looks like the family lived near Voorschoten, and all of these areas are close to Leiden and Katwijk, so the family didn't move very far in those days. But this is from our website, and you can read the website at the top of this page, but I will put the links into the comments or somewhere below, and then you can go and look up some yourself. The guy who made this website, his name is Ben van Rhyn, or he calls himself Oom Ben, and he's in Amsterdam, and I'm really thankful for all the work that he's done, because he's gone to a lot of trouble and he's put references in and original extracts and so on. And I've emailed him, and he and I are connected, but it's 400 years ago. But Daniel van Rhyn, I believe, is one of the first forefathers that we can basically establish for certain. Now, don't be confused here. I'll sometimes put two pages about the same person. That's from a different website. So you'll see a blue one, and then you'll see more of a white one. It's the same person. It's just different information, but the same person from different sources. So the next one I have is Jan van Rhyn, who was born around 1625, and he is the son of Daniel. So don't be confused now. Daniel is a son of a Jan, and Jan is the son of a Daniel. Okay, so he was born around 1625. There's a bit of information on that slide about him. There's a bit more information about him on the blue slide. And here it says, well, he was born maybe around 1616, but definitely before 1625. Now, if you are English speaking, let me tell you a little bit. Geboren, Geboren, means born. Trou, Trouw, means married. Getrouwd means the past tense of marriage. And then the main words, you might see doop or gedoop, G-E-D-O-O-P, or D-O-O-P, which means baptized, or G-E means the past version of being baptized. So you'll see those words throughout the next few pages, so that will help you understand. So then we have Jan Daniels is still in Voorschoten. It seems that around this time the family moved to Katwijk. And the family stampfather, or the forefather who went to South Africa, came from Katwijk. And here's a map of Katwijk. And what's interesting about Katwijk is that in Roman times, Katwijk was a place of strategic importance. It was located at the Roman Empire's northern border, at the mouth of the Rhine River, which in Roman times was larger in this area than it is today. So you can see basically Lugdunum and Praetorium Agrippina, they were Roman forts. And so this map shows you the Roman forts and Katwijk. And this is where the family lived for hundreds of years before our ancestor went to South Africa. Now, the name Katwijk probably has its origins in the name of a Germanic tribe called the Chatten or Chattai. The Dutch word wijk means area, so the name probably meant something like the Chattai area. You can go and look up Chatten, C-H-A-T-T-E-N, and you'll find out more about those people. But from what I understand, they were basically Germanic people from further south. So then the family lived in Katwijk for many decades. So the next forefather we have is Daniel van Rhyn, who was born around 1655. So in other words, about 30, 40 years after his dad. And then there's a record of him there, and then there's another record of him there. And in this record you can actually see, you can see where it says Leiden trouw, which means married in Leiden in 1680, and there's an entry about that. And so this is what I like about the work that when Ben van Rhyn did. He's actually gone and sourced a lot of the original documents, so we don't have to just speculate. And then we have another Jan van Rhyn, son of Daniel, and he was born around 1685. And you can see some information about him there, his brothers and sisters and parents and so on. And remember, these websites are in the comments, so you can look them up there. And then we have another page about him where he's called Johannes Daengelus. So that's probably the more traditional way of saying his name. And in here we appear to have his baptism record. This is where the family history gets a little bit confusing, but I do believe I worked it out. There was another Jan van Rhyn whose middle name was Willem. Now, if his middle name is Willems, it means his dad's name is Willem. Now, Jan Willems van Rhyn lived near the Katwijk area, but more in, I think, Zoeterwoude, another town nearby. And this is where I got confused for many years, because Jan Willems, who's obviously the son of Willem, is not connected to these people that I was talking about before. There was no Willem there. Now, Rembrandt had a brother called Willem van Rhyn, so it is possible that, you know, they were connected there. Now, what's confusing about Jan Willem is he had a son called Dirk. Dirk was the son of Jan, and so therefore his name is Dirk Jans. This is confusing because there's another Dirk Jans who is my family, and there's this Dirk Jans who is maybe far family but not direct family. And the confusing thing is, one was born in Zoeterwoude and the other one was born, I think, in Katwijk, but basically they're near each other and they were born at a similar time. And so if you don't do your family history research properly, you can easily get these two guys mixed up and you can go on the wrong path. So Dirk Jans, who is the son of Jan Willems, comes from Zoeterwoude, but like I say, I don't believe he is direct family. Now, he was born in about 1728. My forefather and the forefather of the South African van Rhyns was born, I believe, in 1718, baptized in 1719. So, two different guys, similar names, similar period, two different guys. Now, I asked a guy, before I knew this, to do some research for me. He lives in Holland. I think he lives in Leiden. To make it more confusing, some of the entries there are wrong. So when I asked him to look up this guy, they called him Dirk van Recht. Obviously, we're not van Recht. And the man that I paid to do the family research basically said, the records, people spelled wrong, people had hearing problems, all sorts of things. And that's why we have Van Racht. But Van Racht is actually Dirk Jans van Rhyn from Zoeterwoude from 1728, who is not our family, but he has a similar name. Going back to the Leiden and Katwijk branch of the family, well, maybe not Leiden, but very close to Leiden, we have Dirk van Rhyn. Now, Dirk van Rhyn is also Dirk Jans, but he was born 17, 19, 20, around there. I believe it's 19, even though this says what it says. And this is now back to the South African branch of the family, the forefathers. So there's a record about him there. We can see that he was baptized at Uchtgeest and born at Katwijk. Baptized in January 1720, and there's the entry, which means more than likely probably born 1719, unless they baptized him very quickly, because this was in January. So there's an original entry there. On the next page, we can see that Dirk Jans married Les Willemsdokter Braam. This is the actual thing that they used to do. It's basically the intent to get married. So ondertrouwd means basically the banns or the promise or the notification to get married. So that's in 1742 in Katwijk. That's not the actual marriage record. Here is the actual marriage record where they got married in 1742, 29th of April in Katwijk. On the next page, I'm going to put the whole page. You can zoom in and you'll see it's the same as the extract on the previous page. It's the first record up the top. So now we're traveling towards 1750s. Here is a bit of a record of the Van Rhyns who went to South Africa's ancestry. So we have Dirk, and we have him being born and being married in 1742, and this is about his family, his children, and then you can see child number 13 is another Dirk. So there's a lot of Dirks here. You have Dirk being born, Dirk Jans being born in 17, 18, 19, around there, probably 17, 19. Then he has many children. Child number 13 is Dirk, who was born or probably baptized anyway, but 1760. Now, he is the stamfather. After Dirk, I have records of a few more children being born, so probably 2 or 3 more, but it's not in here. Now, Dirk is number 13 or so, and he goes to South Africa and he marries Maria Johanna Slabbert. They marry in 1792. They have some children. They have Johannes, and they have Dirk, and they have Hendrik. Now this page only shows Johannes and Hendrik, but I'll show you more later. This is the baptism record of the stamfather, Dirk, from 1760. And you can see his parents are Dirk van Rhyn and Lisbeth Braam. The next entry is about the stamfather going to South Africa He was a quartermaster on a ship, and the ship was called the Lady Reinanda Luberta, or in Dutch they would say Vrouw Reinanda Luberta. Now that ship, as you can see, went to South Africa a few times from Holland on the way to Indonesia, and then stopping at South Africa, and so on and so on. So we don't really know if the Stampfather came to South Africa on the 1784 journey, or maybe on a later journey in 1786-7. Either way, we know that he came in the 1780s. It's just which trip. So there's a summary of the journeys of the ship. He worked as a storeman for the Dutch East Indies Company. In Dutch, it's the VOC. The next page and a few pages after, there's newspaper articles from the time that talk about the ship. And on this page, it's somewhere on the right hand column, almost towards the bottom, basically just telling the people that the ships are going here and there and have arrived and left and whatever. Here's another one about the ship, and that's from I think it's a Leiden Courant or newspaper from 1787, and there's another one here. But basically they're all just repeats from different sources of newspaper that I got on the internet. And so you can read that if you want. It's quite interesting. On the next slide, there's basically a bit of a summary about the Stampfather, or the ancestor who went to South Africa from Holland. And this is in Afrikaans, and this is about his children. And basically says that the family spread throughout the land. Many of them became professionals and studied, and others became farmers, predominantly in vineyards and cattle farmers. And my family certainly were cattle farmers. This next page is a extract of the wedding record of the Stampfather, and you can see it says he's from Katwijk on the Rhyn, and that he got married in 1792 in September, and that Maria Johanna Slabbert van Cabo de Goeden Hope, and she was already from South Africa. And that's the marriage extract. Unfortunately, the Stampfather did not live very long. I do not know why. This is a copy of his death extract. It says, as you can see, that he came from Katwijk, and his name was Dirk van Rhyn. This is from 1798. If he was born in 1760, and this is in January, he was probably only 37 years old. The next page is the back of, or the next page of this, just says 30th of January 1798 towards the bottom. That lines up with the entry of the previous page, so that's another extract there, and it's a bit sad that he died so young. Lucky for all of the Van Rhyns in South Africa, he did have children, otherwise we would not exist. Now this is another record that I found from 1798. If you look towards the bottom, you'll see there's an entrance or an entry made about Maria Slabbert, widow of Dirk van Rhyn. And what I understand is this is a sort of a transfer of church membership. I'm not sure if it's to the Swartland or from the Swartland congregation, but this is after the death of the Stampfather. Now there's another book here you can try and Google. I found it on the internet. It looks like this. You can find a lot of good family history things in this book. There's 3 parts, and the front page looks like that. It's about old Cape families, and it was written around the 1894 or somewhere around there. This is a sort of typical entrance that you'll see, and this is about the old Cape families, and you can see there's some typed information there. Dutch was still the official language in South Africa, but you can see that he had 3 children. I personally come from the second son, and what I can gather is that Johannes appeared to sort of stay in Cape Town, and then Dirk and Hendrik, the second and third sons, appeared to move inland towards what we now know as Van Rhynsdorp. But you can see that Dirk lived at Tolbach, or however you say it. The other interesting thing is they both married sisters. So Dirk married Avissa, and so did Hendrik. And the Visser sisters had a dad called Petrus Benjamin, and so you can see Dirk and Hendrik both have Peter or Petrus Benjamin children, and henceforth from there we have so many Peter Benjamins. But it's interesting that the Peter Benjamin or Petrus Benjamins actually come from the Visser side of the family. One of my own sons is named Benjamin basically because of this. Here is the Visser entry, and you can see it's out of the same book, and you can see the same information but just from the Visser side of the family, saying that they married Van Rhyns. Here is an entry from the wedding records of Johannes and also Dirk, and that's the Swartland community or Swartland congregation. So this is a nice original entry from their marriages, 1818 and 1819. This is the only grave, or the earliest grave that I know, and so this was a letter Johanna Visser, who later became a Van Rhyn, and this means that she was Hendrik's wife. She's buried at Van Rhynsdorp, and this makes her the daughter-in-law of the stamfather. And so she's the earliest Van Rhyn that I can find a grave of. One of her children was the next guy, Petrus Benjamin, and here is a photo of himself and his wife Anna Catharina Dreyer, later Van Rhyn, and he was a farmer, businessman and member of parliament. And I understand that he's the son of Hendrik, and I think his dad basically started Van Rhynsdorp. So he's quite famous in our family. Here is a better photo of him in the next slide. Now, coming back to myself, we immigrated from South Africa in 1983. My father was from the Vryburg area, and before that the family was from Van Rhynsdorp, and obviously before that from Cape Town. So that's how I got to be. My father went to Pretoria to study and work there, and then met my mother, and then we moved around South Africa a bit, and then we came to Australia, and then we came on a big South African Airways aeroplane. I don't have a photo of that one, but I do have this one that brought us from Sydney to Brisbane, where we settled in Australia. So that's how I got to be here. Now, coming back to Rembrandt and the connections that we may or may not have, we'll go back to Holland and I'll show you this map here. And as you can see there, that Holland is very densely populated, and you can see that Katwijk is at the sea, and there's also Katwijk Central and Katwijk on den Rhyn. You can also see Leiden is only about 2 kilometers away, and this is not very far really. And Rembrandt's family come from Leiden. And on the next slide you can see a little bit about Rembrandt's father, and his name was Herman Gerrit van Rhyn, so obviously the son of Gerrit. There's a bit of information there about his family and his children. Obviously Rembrandt is the most famous van Rhyn. On the next slide you can see marriage record. I believe it is Rembrandt's father's father, but I'm not 100% sure, and I tried to follow the link and it didn't work. But anyway, this is a really old record of a van Rhyn marriage. Here is a photo of Rembrandt, or obviously painting. No photos in those days. And here is his grave in Holland. And the next page talks about Rembrandt, and this is in Afrikaans. And it basically says that he got married to Saskia and he had a son, Titus, and that he did a lot of portraits and a lot of paintings about biblical themes. He did about 700 paintings, and these were his brothers and sisters, and so on and so on, and where they're buried and when they died and that sort of thing. And this is the banns, or a record of the wedding, or proposed wedding, of Rembrandt and his first wife Saskia. And it looks like Saskia and Rembrandt were only married for about 8 or so years before she passed away. And this is from 1634. Now, if you're really interested in Rembrandt and his family, the next few slides are a bit complicated, but they're interesting. Basically, you need to match all of these pages and join them up where the lines are coloured. So you can see here there's a green line. That green line should really be glued next to this green line on the next slide. And that red line should really go with the next red line on this slide. And the blue line should really go with the next slide, if you get the idea. But basically this shows you Rembrandt's family, his children, his brothers, his in-laws, his grandpa, the whole lot. As you can see, I do not think we're related. None of these names are coming up in a direct lineage. Having said that, Leiden, Katwijk are very close. Probably someone was cousins or something, and there must be a connection somewhere.